guys, welcome back to my channel. First off, don't mind this hair. I know it is looking a hot mess. I just let it air dry. I've kind of given up doing my hair until I get my hair done, which I'm getting it done on January 21st. It cannot get here soon enough, so I've just kind of given up. I'm done messing with it. It is so bad. It needs done so bad. I'm just done. So yeah, it just, I mean, look at this. This is like curly over here. It's a hot mess, so just disregard that. Let's just move along. Today's video is going to be a makeup declutter video. I asked you guys on Twitter, I posted a poll on Twitter asking you guys if you wanted to see more makeup declutters on my channel. I plan on going through all of my makeup collection again. I know I did makeup declutter videos last year, but I kind of stopped doing it around May. I just want to get back into it. I just want to declutter a lot of my makeup. Today's video is going to be so exciting. Well, exciting and kind of sad at the same time. We're going to be decluttering my eyeshadow palettes. Spoiler alert, I did get rid of 27 eyeshadow palettes, which I think is crazy. Nobody even needs to have that many eyeshadow palettes. I mean, nobody. I have an excessive amount of makeup in general, but eyeshadow palettes is one of those things that I tend to collect. I just love eyeshadow palettes. I love playing around with them, and some really good ones have come out these last few years. So this was very difficult getting rid of some, but I am proud of myself. 27 eyeshadow palettes, that is awesome. Before we get into decluttering though, if you are new to my channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button right down below. That way you get notified of future videos that I post. And without further ado, let's go ahead and declutter some eyeshadow palettes. This is going to be very interesting. These are all of my eyeshadow palettes. No one in their right mind needs this many eyeshadow palettes, but of course I am not in my right mind and I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes. This is going to be very difficult. I probably should have came prepared with a bottle of wine because this is going to be hard. I didn't realize how difficult this part was going to be. I was probably most excited to film this part, but now looking at all of these, this is going to be so difficult. Oh my gosh. But we're gonna do this. We are going to get rid of several eyeshadow palettes. The first thing that I know I'm going to go ahead and get rid of is this. This is from Sonia Kashuk. This is the Jewel of an Eye eyeshadow palette, and this is a really nice palette. The shadows in here are really nice and pigmented. However, I just don't really reach for this. I have colors that are in this same kind of color family, and I just never reach for this palette, like ever. Every time I try and talk myself into keeping this, I'm like, I'm going to use it. I never do, so I am going to get rid of that one. This is one I'm going to keep. This is the NYX Avant Pop palette in Nouveau Chic. I love this palette. This is a really nice palette from NYX. I've used this a lot on my channel. This color right here is like a perfect highlighting shade. Look at that. So beautiful. I've used this on my cheeks as a like highlighter on my cheeks, and it is stunning. Love this palette. It's a great value. So many beautiful colors. You can do so many different eye looks with it. It's definitely a good one. This palette is from Becca Cosmetics. It is the Ombre Rouge eyeshadow palette. This palette I think I'm actually going to get rid of. I really liked it when I first got it, but honestly I just don't get any inspiration from this palette, and that's really something I look for in an eyeshadow palette, is if I can get some inspiration from it. The colors are beautiful neutrals, but I feel like I have so many palettes that are full of really great neutral shades, so I am going to go ahead and pass this on. I think my sister actually would really like it. This palette is from e.l.f. It is the Prism eyeshadow palette in Naked. These are beautiful shades. I am going to go ahead and keep this one because you cannot beat these eyeshadows at all. They are so pigmented, so buttery. They're like foiled shadows. Look at that. Such great quality from e.l.f. So I am going to go ahead and keep this one. It's a really great palette for the summertime. Beautiful bronzy shades. You cannot beat that for, I think it's like $10. This palette is the Urban Decay Electric palette. I'm definitely going to be keeping this because this is just a fun palette to have. I love the variety of colors. I just think they're very unique, and it's just a nice palette to have. It's not something that you would use every day, but for somebody like myself who likes to play around with color every now and then, it's definitely a really great palette. So I am going to go ahead and keep that one. This is a little palette from Smashbox. It is their Art Love Color palettes. This came as like a little holiday set. It comes with some eyeshadows and then a blush down here. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of this. I honestly never reach for it, and I think my sister or my mother-in-law would really like this as well, so I'm going to give it to one of them and see if they can get some use out of it. This is my original Tartelette palette. I love this palette right here. All the Tartelette palettes I think I'm going to keep because I love them, so I'm going to keep this one. It's one of my favorite palettes. I am also going to keep the In Bloom one if I can find it. I don't know where it went right right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and keep this one. This is a palette from Tarte as well. This was like a thing I got off of maybe like QVC or something. I don't know where I got this, but really pretty colors. I just never used this ever, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this one as well. It does come with a nice blush in Talented, but honestly I always forget that I have this, so I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this one as well. This is one of my favorite palettes. It's the Too Faced Peanut Butter and Jelly. I never really use it, but it's just such a beautiful palette. I love the way it smells. I need to use this more frequently, so I am gonna go ahead and keep this just because it's so cute and it reminds me of my husband because we live on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Like, no joke, I love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, so I have to keep this. This is another one from Too Faced. This is one of my favorites. This is the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. I love this palette. I mentioned this in my Best of Beauty for 2016. I really like this palette. It has a really nice scent to it. The colors are really great, very pigmented, blend out beautifully, perfect for the spring and summertime. This palette is from Sigma. This is like one of my first palettes I think I ever purchased. This is the Flare palette. Look at how thick this is. I bought this a long time ago. It does come with a dual-ended brush. These are the colors that are inside. I was obsessed with this when I first got it, but I think now I can pass it on. I have other palettes that have a variety of colors like this, so I do think I'm gonna go ahead and pass this one on. We are making moves, girl. We are making progress. This next palette here is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette. You already know I am going to be keeping this. I would be a fool if I got rid of this. This one is one of my all-time favorite palettes that launched in 2016. This is another e.l.f. Prism eyeshadow palette. This one is in the shade Sunset. This one is really beautiful as well. Beautiful array of colors in here, nice golds, nice purpley tone shades. So I am going to go ahead and keep this one as well because I just feel like you can't go wrong with good affordable shadows like this, and the formula of these are absolutely amazing. So I am going to go ahead and keep this one as well. This is a palette I've contemplated getting rid of quite a few times. It is the Chocolate Bonbons palette from Too Faced. It just has a lot of cool toned shadows in here. I just personally don't ever use this. I know a lot of people really like this palette, but I just don't really like the way that it's laid out. I never gravitate towards this palette. I never use it. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this one on. This one, on the other hand, I'm definitely going to keep. This is the original Too Faced chocolate bar. You can tell how old mine is since it's the bigger version. It's a lot more slender now, but I love this palette. This is probably one of my favorite neutral palettes that I have. Definitely a great one from Too Faced. I am going to go ahead and keep this one. This is a palette from Stila that I'm going to keep. This my husband bought me, and it was a very expensive palette. I love the shade Kitten in here. Even though I don't reach for this all that often, my husband did pay a pretty good penny for it, and I love that he picked it out. So I am going to go ahead and keep this palette. This is the BH Cosmetics and Carly Bible palette. I love this palette. This is such a great little palette, very affordable. I think I paid like $12 or $14 for it. The colors do look pretty similar. You get eyeshadows up here and then a row of highlighters. I do feel like the shades in here all look very similar, but the pigmentation is really nice. Oh, I just jabbed another palette into this. I have no room here. I have too many eyeshadow palettes. But this is a beautiful eyeshadow palette. Carly definitely did a really great job. The formulation is beautiful. The highlighting shades are stunning. I really like this palette. It's a great affordable option. So I am going to go ahead and keep this one. Pretty much all of my Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow palettes I'm going to be keeping. This one is the Shadow Couture World Traveler palette. A beautiful neutral palette with some fun pops of color. I love this one. This is one of my favorites from Anastasia Beverly Hills, so I'm pretty much going to keep all of my Anastasia eyeshadows. Yet again, here's another one. This is the Master palette by Mario. Love this palette. It's so beautiful. Perfect for the fall time. Such a beautiful variety of colors in here that are just so rich and gorgeous. Very well pigmented. You know, I'm already going to be keeping that one. This is the Lorac Pro 3 palette, and honestly, I think I'm going to get rid of this. Lorac isn't cruelty free, and this palette I just wasn't blown away with. I do think some of my other Lorac palettes I will keep, but this one I just don't really like. I feel like it's not really up to par with the other Lorac eyeshadow palettes, and I never reach for it. I personally am not the biggest fan, so I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this one. This is another palette I think I'm gonna get rid of. This is actually my very first eyeshadow palette I ever bought. This is the Stila Natural Eyes palette. It is so beautiful. The colors in here are so pigmented, but I've honestly had this for for so long and I never reach for it anymore. And since I'm keeping that other Stila eyeshadow palette, I think I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one. This is another Too Faced palette that I'm going to get rid of. This is the Natural Matte eyeshadow palette. There was so many great reviews on this palette, and honestly I bought it thinking that I was going to use it a lot. Personally, I'm just not a big fan of the array of colors in here. You do get a nice mix of warm and cool tone shadows, but for me, I just never reach for this. If I'm looking for something more neutral, I always go for something different, like a different palette. I never reach for this. I think that somebody else would get a lot more use out of this than myself, so I am going to go ahead and pass this one on as well. This is my Kat Von D Metal Matte eyeshadow palette. I am totally keeping this. This is such a beautiful palette. I love Kat Von D's eyeshadows, and the color selection in here is just so much fun. I am definitely going to be keeping this. This is another Anastasia eyeshadow palette. This is the Artist palette. Again, I am keeping all of my Anastasia eyeshadows. They are just fantastic. This is a palette from Sigma. This is the Warm Neutrals. These are really nice pigmented shadows, but honestly, again, I just never reach for it. I never think about it. When I look at it, I don't really get much inspiration. Even though the colors are beautiful, they're very pigmented and they blend out very nicely, it's just something that I don't gravitate towards, so I will go ahead and get rid of this one as well. This is another one from Sigma. This is the Smoke Screen palette, and this palette I actually do really like, so I will keep this one. This one is the Brilliant and Spellbinding palette. I really do like this one. I love the colors in here. Even though they're very different, I really like them, especially this like baby poop color down here. I really like it for some reason, so I am going to go ahead and keep this palette as well. This is the Jeffree Star Beauty Killer palette. I got this when it first released. I honestly think I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. I just never reach for it. Really great shades in here though. They're very pigmented, just not something that I gravitate towards anymore. This is the Urban Decay Gwen Stefani palette. This is what it looks like right here. Honestly, I don't know about this palette. I think I actually might get rid of this. I never use it. It is beautiful. The colors in here are nice and pigmented, and you do get a lot of fun neutrals in here. The palette just looks very, very similar. It is like a collector's piece, but honestly, I never use it, and there's other things that I have in my collection that I would rather use and have. Even though it's a collector's piece, I'm not like that obsessed with Gwen Stefani, so I think I can go ahead and pass this one on. This is probably one of my favorite palettes from Urban Decay. Again, this is like a collector's piece. This is the Alice Through the Looking Glass. This is what the palette looks like right here. I love this palette. I think it is so beautiful. I love the way that they did it. It's definitely a really nice collector's piece, so I am going to go ahead and keep this one because I'm obsessed with this palette. It is so beautiful. The colors are gorgeous. They blend out beautifully. I think I'll definitely keep this one over the Gwen Stefani one. Again, I have some more Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow palettes. This one is the Lavish palette, and then I have the Self-Made palette. I'm going to be keeping both of those. Here's my other Tartelette palette. This is the Tartelette in Bloom palette. Again, I'm keeping this one. This is such a beautiful palette. One of my favorites from Tarte. I used this a ton when I got it. Just a really great travel palette. I am going to go ahead and keep this one as well. This is a palette from Sigma. It's the Cream de Couture palette. I love this. If you need like a nice pastel color, it's pretty much going to be found in this palette here. I love it. It's so beautiful, so unique. I am going to keep it because I don't really have anything that has this many pastel colors in it, and it's just really fun to play around with in the spring and summertime. So I am going to hang on to this one. This is a palette I'm going to go ahead and get rid of. This is the NYX Waiting for Tonight palette. It is a really beautiful palette. You get a ton of really nice shadows in here, but honestly it's so big, so bulky. You do get some stuff down here, some eyebrow products, some blushes, a bronzer, some lip glosses and stuff like that, but honestly it's so bulky, and the packaging just kind of like, I don't know, it opens up all the time. It's very awkward. I never reach for it. I don't think I will really ever reach for it again. So yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and pass this on. This is my Kat Von D Mi Vida Loca palette. I am totally keeping this. I would be so silly to get rid of this. This is such a fun, unique palette. The packaging is kind of ridiculous and bulky, but that is what I like about it. It's unique. It's different. The colors inside are gorgeous. It's like a giant color wheel. You cannot go wrong with this palette. I'm obsessed with it, so I'm definitely hanging on on to this. This is the Morphe and Kathleen Lights collaboration. This is what the palette looks like right here. It is a really pretty palette. The colors are decently pigmented. I do think I'll hang on to it a little while longer, even though I don't use it that often, just to try it out a little bit more, play around with it a little bit more. I love these colors down here. I just feel like they're very unique and different. So I do think I'll hang on to this and try and play around with it a little bit more. This is actually a really nice eyeshadow palette from Makeup Revolution. It's the Affirmation palette. A great variety of neutrals in here. You get a lot of warm tone shades, a lot of cool tone shades, some nice colorful purples down here. This is one of my favorite palettes from the drugstore. I think this was like $15, such a steal. The colors are so pigmented and gorgeous. This color right here is so stunning. Look at that pigmentation, so freaking beautiful. I'm obsessed with this palette. You definitely should check this out. Makeup Revolution has really good affordable products, so I am going to keep that one. Of course, I'm going to keep my Tartiste Pro palette. This is one of my favorite palettes I think that I own. It's so beautiful. I mentioned this in my Best of Beauty of 2016. Such a wonderful variety of colors, very pigmented. They blend out beautifully. Definitely a perfect beginner palette or a perfect travel palette. You cannot go wrong with this in my opinion. I love it. This is the Kat Von D Shade and Light eyeshadow palette. I don't use this as often as a lot of people do, but I do think I'm going to hang on to it because it is a really nice all matte palette. Great variety of neutral shades in here. You get warm tones, cool tones, neutral tones, kind of everything that you would need in this palette, so I am going to go ahead and keep that. This is the BH Cosmetics and Shan XO palette. You get 9 different lipsticks back here, and then you get the eyeshadow palette right here. This is a pretty nice palette. I just never reach for it, so I do think I'm going to go ahead and pass this on. I feel like my sister might really like this palette, so I'm going to give this to her and see maybe if she can get more use out of it than I can. This is one of my favorite travel palettes, even though it's not cruelty free. I have used this a ton. It is the Lorac Pro To Go. I really do like this palette, so I do think I'm going to hang on to it because I do use it quite frequently. Just a great palette to travel with. You get some blushes and a bronzer back here. I am going to go ahead and hang on to this even though it's not a cruelty free product, just because I did pay for it and I do use it, so I am going to go ahead and hang on to that. These palettes from Milani are actually really nice. I do think I'm going to hang on to them and maybe do some makeup looks with them. This one is called the Must Have Neutrals, and it's just a really great everyday neutral palette. If you're somebody that likes cool tone neutral shades, this is a beautiful freaking palette. This one is the Earthy Elements. This one you probably already know I am completely obsessed with. This orange is what totally sold me. I am going to keep both of these because they are just really great affordable eyeshadows. Alright, next is the Urban Decay Naked Basics palette. I have used this so much. I wore this on my wedding day. It's a really nice neutral palette, but honestly I never reach for it anymore. I think it's time to just get rid of it, so I'm gonna go ahead and pass this one on. This is the NYX The Go-To palette. This one is in the shade Bon Voyage. This is what it looks like. It is really pretty, a great variety of like smoky shades, but I don't really reach for it. I just got it not too long ago, but it doesn't look like how it looked like online, so I'm not the biggest fan of it. I just like to have a palette that's kind of like a one-stop shop, and with this I'd have to reach for several different palettes, so I am going to go ahead and get rid of this one. This is the Kat Von D Monarch palette. This is what it looks like right here. I do think I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one. I used to use this a lot. I really liked this color down here, but I never reach for it anymore, and I just feel like it's kind of silly to hang on to something if I don't reach for it all the time, so I am going to go ahead and give this away as well. This is my Urban Decay Naked 2 palette. I used to love this palette when it first came out. I do think I'm going to hang on to it because it's just a classic. It's a great palette. I really do love Urban Decay shadows, so I am going to go ahead and keep this one. This is the Urban Decay Smoky palette. I love this one as well. The colors in here are so rich and sexy, and I love them. They are gorgeous, very pigmented. They blend beautifully. You also get a nice variety of lighter shades in here and some nice mattes down here. Love this palette. I am going to go ahead and keep this one as well. This is a palette from Lorac that I got, I think from Haute Look. It is a really beautiful palette. You get a lot of fun, like, summery shades in here, but honestly, I just never reach for it in the summertime. I have so many other palettes that have nice colors like this, so I am going to go ahead and get rid of this one. This is the Lorac Pro Matte Eyeshadow Palette. I am going to go ahead and keep this one because I do use this a lot. It has a lot of nice neutral shades in here, so I am going to go ahead and hang on to this one. This is the Lorac Unzipped palette. Again, this is a really nice eyeshadow palette. I think I'm actually going to get rid of this though because I just never reach for it, and since it's not cruelty free, I'm trying to get rid of as much as I can that's not cruelty free. It is a beautiful eyeshadow palette though. The colors are very pigmented. I never reach for it, and I feel like somebody else could love it more than I can. So I am going to go ahead and get rid of this one. This is my original Lorac Pro palette. I do think I'm going to hang on to this because I do use this quite a bit. The colors in here are very rich, very creamy, and I do love Lorac shadows. I wish they were cruelty free so I could buy more, but I do love this eyeshadow palette, and I am going to go ahead and keep this one. Again, another Lorac palette. This one's the Lorac Pro 2. I do think I'm going to hang on to this one as well just because I love some of these shimmery shades down here, and I do reach for this one, so I am going to go ahead and keep this as well. This is a little Too Faced like holiday palette that I got last year. This one has quite a bit of shimmers in it. I do think I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this because I just never ever reach for these. Beautiful colors in here though. I do like this color called Fleur, but I feel like I have a color that is very similar to this in another palette, so I do think I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. This is another little holiday one from Too Faced. Again, really beautiful colors in here. I feel like this one I might actually keep just because the colors in here are very neutral, and I feel like for traveling it's a great little travel palette. You get a nice blush in here as well, so I do think I will hang on to this one just because the colors in here are really nice. This is the Lorac Pro Metal Eyeshadow Palette. This one is really nice, but I'd never reach for it, honestly. The colors in here are very pigmented, but I never reach for these. I don't know why. I feel like I reach for my Makeup Geek foiled shadows a little bit more, so I do think I'll go ahead and pass this one on. The original Urban Decay Naked palette. I have loved this so much. I do think I'm going to hang on to this one as well because this is just a classic. It is a classic palette. Everybody needs this one in their collection. It is a beautiful eyeshadow palette. Definitely a good one. I'm keeping it. My Lorac Mega Pro palettes. I love these, honestly, I do. They are beautiful. The colors are gorgeous. The color selection in here is just gorgeous. So I am going to go ahead and keep both of these because I do like them, and I paid a pretty penny for these. So I am going to go ahead and keep both of these. This is the Jaclyn Hill Favorites palette from Morphe. I think I will keep this. This does have a very nice variety of shades in here. Morphe shadows are very pigmented for the most part. They blend out pretty nicely for the most part. I am going to go ahead and keep this one because it was a limited edition palette, and I do reach for some of these colors like in the spring and summertime. Nice variety of mattes and shimmers. You also get some fun pops of color down here, so I do really like this Morphe palette. I think I am going to go ahead and keep it. I've got this Laura Mercier Eye Art Artists palette. I've had this one for a long time as well. Let me see, how do I open it? This is what it looks like right here. I really like this palette. I love how like purpley and cool tone it is. I don't really have anything else like this in my collection, so I do think I'm going to go ahead and hang on to this one because I just love the variety of colors in here. I think that it's a really nice kind of cool tone purpley palette, so I do think I'm going to hang on to this one. This is the Urban Decay Smoked palette. I've had this one for quite some time. I do think I am going to go ahead and get rid of it because I just never reach for it. I used to reach for it all the time when I first got it, but now I never reach for it hardly, so I am going to go ahead and get rid of this one. This is the Morphe 35O palette. This is a very hyped up palette on YouTube. It does have a lot of beautiful colors in here. I will go ahead and hang on to it. Again, it has a nice variety of matte shades, a lot of great shimmer shades in here as well. I am going to go ahead and hang on to this one. This is the Urban Decay Naked 3 palette. This one I'm kind of on the fence about. I like it. It's really pretty, but honestly I just never ever reach for it. But I feel like for prom makeup looks or something like that, or like bridal makeup looks, it'd be a good palette to have, so I might actually hang on to it, try and do some looks with it, try and play around with it a little bit more and see maybe if my opinion on it changes. So I do think I'll hang on to it for right now. This is the Too Faced Stardust and Vegas Nay palette. Really beautiful colors in here, but honestly I just never ever reach for this palette. I think I am going to go ahead and get rid of this one. one. This is the Too Faced Everything Nice palette. This is a holiday palette that came out a few years ago. I love the colors in here, but honestly, I wish there was like a little bit more warm tone shades. I do like this blush, this Papa Don't Peach, that I think was just recently released with the Peach collection, unless it's not the same color. I do, however, feel like I'm going to get rid of this because I never reach for it, and honestly, it's just a little too cool tone for my liking. I wish it had a little bit more warm tones in it, so I do think I'm going to pass this one on as well. This is the Urban Decay Vice palette. I can't remember which Vice palette this is. I think it's like maybe the third one or so. This one is really pretty. I love the colors in here. Such beautiful like greens and purples and blues. I really do like this palette, so I am going to go ahead and keep this one. This is the Visart or Viseart Neutral palette, the Neutral Mattes 01 palette. I really like this palette. Again, a great variety of neutral shades. Very pigmented, very easy to work with. I am going to go ahead and keep this one. This palette is a really good dupe for the Viseart palette. This is the e.l.f. Mad for Matte eyeshadow palette. I am going to go ahead and keep this one as well for like affordable makeup looks and stuff like that. I feel like as somebody who films YouTube videos, it's nice to have affordable options as well as kind of higher end options, so I am going to go ahead and keep this one. These palettes from IT Cosmetics are so freaking nice. These are the Naturally Pretty palettes. This is the original one. It has a lot of like neutral shadows. I really love the formula of these, so I am going to go ahead and keep both of these. This one's the Romantics palette. How pretty is that? I love these palettes. These are really great. If you're somebody that likes really simple makeup, these two palettes are really great. Very neutral eyeshadows and gorgeous. They blend out beautifully. This is one of my favorite palettes from Sigma. This is the Resort palette. This came out, I think, a few years ago. I love this eyeshadow palette. I used to use this all the time. These colors down here are like my everything. I love them so much. I do think I'm going to hang on to this just because it's one of my favorite Sigma palettes. Same thing with this one. This is the Paris palette that came out. This was actually in collaboration with a lot of YouTubers. I remember getting this palette, like it was so hyped up. This was like one of the first collaborations that I ever purchased. I really like this palette a lot. I feel like the colors in here are so unique, aren't they? They're just beautiful. I love the blush tones down here. You also get a nice little highlighter. It comes with some brushes. I just love this palette. I honestly just cannot get rid of this. It's such a nice like little collector's piece that I have to keep it. So I do love it. It's so beautiful. The packaging in and of itself is just so beautiful. So I am going to go ahead and keep this one as well. These two palettes are from Buxom. I created these myself. This is just a nice little like purpley toned, cool toned palette. Really pretty. I like Buxom's shadows. They do have really nice eyeshadows. This one's a really nice neutral palette as well. I do really like the formula of these, but honestly, I just never reach for them. So I think I might actually pass both of these on. And then the last palette. This is my Marc Jacobs palette that I bought, I think, last year. This is the Free Spirit Style Icon number 20. And I was kind of going into this video with the mindset of getting rid of this, but looking at it, I just can't. It's so beautiful and the colors are so pigmented. They blend beautifully. I just can't seem to part with this. So I do think I'm gonna hang on to it. I really do like the shades that are in here. I don't know if Marc Jacobs is a cruelty-free brand, but since I paid so much for this, I think this was like $100 or so, I just feel like I have to keep it and use it because it's so expensive and the colors are really nice. So I am gonna go ahead and keep this palette as well. Alright guys, that is going to be it for this makeup declutter. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments what some of your all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes are. I would love to hear what you guys recommend. Also, give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it and click that subscribe button right down below. That way you are notified of all my future videos. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day and I will talk to you soon in my next one. Bye!